Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today we're in Masechtas Nedarim Daf Tes Vav. We are going to begin on the bottom of Yud Daled Amud Beis by the Mishnah. A person says, Kainem, he makes a neder upon himself, Shani Yashin, that he's not going to sleep. Now, l'chara, this should not work because he didn't mention anything about his eyes. So it's a davar she'ein bo mamish. So the Gemara is going to establish this a little bit better and exactly what he said. Or, Shani Medaber, I'm not going to speak. Shani Mahalach, I'm not going to go. Or, for that matter, Ha'oimel Ishav, he says to his wife, Kainim Shani Meshamshich, that he makes a neder that he's not going to have tashmish with her. Why would you think that would work? There's a chiyav of shek susa naina, so he's not to go against that. So harizeh beloy yachal davaro. In all these situations, he could violate bal yachal davaro if he doesn't fulfill it. So in this, the Rashi says, a person says the aser olai carbon, that he's saying that just like this carbon is aser, so too, let's say, sleep is aser to me. Imani yashim, if I sleep. Oh, if, let's say, ani mahalich. So when it comes to a neder, in all these situations, you would in fact violate bal yachel. Now, on this, the Ran makes another important distinction between a neder and a shvua. So he says, when it comes to bekul garsin sha'ani below yud, it's without a yud. There was shvuas garsin she'eni b'yud. It's either I or it's an ani. It will not. We know when it comes to a neder, you're answering the object, like the bread. So Tani B'Loshen Sha'ani. Koloimer Ma Sha'ani. Umishum de B'Shvuos Aser Nashe, you're answering yourself, Tani B'Loshen She'ani B'Yud. So that's the different girsa between a neder and a shvuah, and telling whether it's on the chayfetz, on the object, or when we're talking about a shvuah, it's on the gav of the person. So now the Gemara immediately says, Itmar Kainim Einai B'Shina Hayoim. First of all, it points out that it has to be that you mention the eyes, because otherwise it would be considered to be, as we said, a davar she'ein bo mamish. So you have to mention, my eyes will not sleep. So I make a neder regarding my eyes, b'shena hayoim, sleeping today, im isha lamachar, if I go to sleep tomorrow. So you're making a tanai, a condition, that I will have to do something regarding sleep today if I go to sleep tomorrow. So Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav, al yishan hayom. You better not go to sleep today, because shemi yishan lamachar, because you may end up going to sleep tomorrow. And you said, im ishan lamachar, if I go to sleep tomorrow, then retroactively there's a problem with today. So because you may end up breaking it tomorrow, you may not be so careful about it tonight because it's happening later tomorrow, and you may end up sleeping tomorrow. So therefore, because of that, he says you better not go to sleep today either, because this neder is going to be chal based on what you'll end up doing tomorrow. Rav Nachman Yishan Hayom. No, you can still go to sleep today. We're not concerned that you're end up going to go to sleep tomorrow, because you know that part of this neder is shemi yishan lamachar. So if you let's say go to sleep today, you're going to be careful to make sure not to sleep tomorrow, because you don't want to get into trouble by retroactively having done the wrong thing. So the question basically is this machlokas, whether or not, according to Yehuda Rav Nachman, a person is going to be zahir in making sure that they're not going to violate the beginning by doing the wrong thing tomorrow, even though it's a condition. Umayda Rabbi Yehuda. Now, Rabbi Yehuda, who typically says that a person is not going to be necessarily very careful tomorrow, because he's not so careful when it comes to a condition. However, if a person would say the other way, that the neder will be chal tomorrow, im ishan hayom, if I go to sleep today, she'ishan hayom. So the din is that you could sleep today, ki lo mizhir b'tana, because when do we say a person may not necessarily be careful when it comes to a condition? However, abul misura mizhar. However, when it comes to an isser, then they will be zahir. So a person is going to be more careful not to violate it when it's not in the lashon of a condition. So let's look in the Ran, going back to the previous Amud. Kilo zahir b'tanei kivan de'enu ikar ha'isr el tanai. It's based on a condition. Yom Rishon to the first day. Avol b'isurai kivan shehu ikar ha'isr afal pi she'enu asr mitzad atzmo. Even though it's not asr by itself, el b'serufai shel Yom Rishon, connecting to the other day, if you'll hachim isser. So when it comes to something which is linked to isser, a person's going to be more careful, but it's something which is conditionary, a person may not be as particular, may not be as concerned. So therefore, if it's something isura, then they'll be more careful. However, they may not be zahir when it comes to a tanai. Look in top Rashi. Kivan di yom shel machar, since the day of tomorrow, havi tanei, Yom Esmo is going to be a condition for yesterday. So he said, I'm not allowed today to sleep if I sleep tomorrow. So tomorrow is connected to today, the day before, the Esmo. If you sleep tomorrow, havi lakim oiso shena, the Esmo, then you get Malchus from the sleep of yesterday. Don't go to sleep today, because when tomorrow comes, lo mizhar betanai, you may not be so particular. So therefore, when it comes to a tanai, we have to be we want you to be more careful today not to violate it. I'll be surai back at Rashi. That I'll make a neder tomorrow from sleeping. If I sleep today, the day tomorrow is not the isura. That's actually linked directly to the isser. Vadim isser zahir be. A person will be careful. The ulomekayim tanai sheyishan ba'oisa hayoyim vade kiyasil machar will have yashin. The itzer beneder. The neder itself talks about tomorrow. So a person is going to be more zahir not to violate it tomorrow. So therefore, because of that person, we don't have to be as strict for today. Okay. Tanan. Koinim shani yashin shani mahalech shani medaber v'chulu. So heichadami ilim ketani. If it's exactly as the Mishnah says, so shani yashin mihavi nedra. So if you don't mention anything about the eyes, your mouth, how is that a neder? It's a davar shein bo mamish, as the Gemara now explains. But not chaymer b'shvuos sheb'shvuos chalos al davar sheish bo mamish. The davar shein bo mamish. Ma shein came in Nedarim. However, when it comes to a neder, v'sheina davar shein bo mamishu. Sleeping is something shein bo mamish. So therefore, l'chayra shouldn't work based on the language of our Mishnah. So as it alluded to in the first line of the Gemara, we have to add the eyes. You have to mention the eyes. So the Gemara says, if you do not give a specific limit to this neder, mishav kinan le ad avar iser bal yachel, are we really going to stick around and wait until he actually violates it and falls asleep? If a person says that I'm not going to sleep, that's an impossibility. So, and we see this. If a person makes a shvua and he's not going to sleep for 3 days, so malkanais of yashim malter, we give him malchus right away, he can go to sleep. There's no neder that will take effect if you don't place a time limit on it. So our Mishnah seems to not put a time limit. So how can we say, oh, let's wait until he violates Bal Yachar by going to sleep? What do you mean? You give him malchus right away. Ella, you have to not only add Yerikainim Einai B'Shena L'Machar, not only have to mention about his eyes, but you have to say, I'm making a neder from my eyes to sleep tomorrow, Im Ishan Hayom, if I sleep today. So you put a time limit on it, which is physically possible that a person could withhold sleep for that long. I ha'amrit kol b'isure mizhar. I thought we said that when it comes to an isser, a person's going to be careful. So therefore, l'chayra, we shouldn't care if he sleeps today, because the whole neder, the ikr neder, is on the isser of tomorrow, that the kainim is eina b'sheni l'machar. So a person, we wouldn't be concerned about him going to sleep l'chayra today, because we know he's not going to break this neder because of that concern. We're not concerned he's going to violate. El pshita, it must be the other way around. So that is where we're concerned, and we don't want him to therefore sleep today because he may violate tomorrow, because that's a tanai. So we see l'chayra, it's clear, like the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda, who makes that chiluk. So if he doesn't sleep today, ki noyim l'machar, my bal yachad avarika. So he says, 1 second. If he doesn't go to sleep today, so when he stays up tomorrow, there's no violation. Elolav b'denoyim. In other words, he did sleep the first day. Al me'isa denoyim etiyuf den Rabbi Yehuda. So l'chayr we see that a person could go to sleep, which is a tiyuf den Rabbi Yehuda that says that a person should be careful. So kikatani di'i noyim. So it says di'i noyim, that if he did. So what does that mean? So let's look in the Ran. The Ran says, V'adarabba. Actually, it's a proof to me. Masnisin had Rabbi Yehuda asalash mi'inan. V'achiktani is zahir shel yishan hayom rishon. You should be careful not to sleep today. Di yashan, because if you did sleep, karavu lavoli di bal yachel dvaro. There's a chance that you may now violate bal yachel. The b'tanai will mizdahir, because a person's not going to be so careful tomorrow. So actually, it's a proof to him. The truth is, there's no Isser D'Oraisa, says the Ran. So it's saying the Stam, it's a case of, it's a Davar Shein Bo Mamish, does not have Mamish. So, nonetheless, even though midorais it's true that it's not chal, but we say that you have violated bal yachal midorabanan even by a davar shein bo mamish by a neder. Umi ika bal yachal midorabanan. Do we ever say you can violate bal yachal, which is a din deraisa, and we call that a derabanan in? The sign is we learned devarim hamutarim. There are certain things that are permissible, and others were noig iser upon it. You're not allowed to matter them in front of you. Fine. So where do we see such a din? That something in which there is the possibility of it's mutter, but since some people are strict, you're not allowed to be matter in front of them. Shnemer lo yachal devaro. Because it says Bal al Yachal Devaro. So the question is, Bal Yachal Devaro, it sounds like you're violating Isser D'Oraisa, but you're not violating anything. So if we look in Rashi, Lavato min Hagam, the Oiber Mishim Bal Yachal, Uminatar Inu Bal Yachal, Rabbanan. So this is only din the Rabbanan. Okay. Which answers question number 3. Eil Beis Dugmois. One is when it comes to neder davar she'ein bo mamish. For example, saying I will not sleep, but you don't even mention your eyes, or b'davar ha'mutar b'cherem nehogim yisur. Okay. So the Gemara says like this: Tanan. So we learned a person says shi'at nehenesli, that you are forbidden to derive hana from me ad haPesach. If you go to your father's house, ad hachag until Sukkos. So halcha, let's say she ends up going with Nea Pesach. Now the time frame was ad haPesach, that she was not allowed to go until Pesach. Again, you cannot derive any benefit from me up until Pesach if you went to your father's house up until Sukkos. So let's say she did go to her father's house with Nea Pesach. Asur b'hanaso ad Pesach. So she's going to be aser to go to get any hana until Pesach. Cholchalef nea Pesach, if she went before Pesach, asura, then she's aser. Lo halcha, loy. But if she did not go, then not. So even though she can't go until Sukkos, but since she won't want to break the Tanai, l'chara it's okay. So Amar Rabba, halchalef nea Pesach, asura v'loika. If she goes, there's it's aser in his malchus. Lo hocha asura ba'alma, then it says an iser ba'alma. Fine. So going to run. Afagav Dishat Nehenesli Iser Vim Telcha Vesavich Tanai Shmamina Defil Tanai Mizahir. A person's even careful when it comes to a Tanai. So again, it's the question that we see that there's no chiluk. We're even careful by a Tanai. So I end up saying, no. It's talking about, it's not a raya. Brad, it's just telling you that Mamanav Shach, it's wrong. But if she goes before Pesach, there'll be Malchus. And you go, if you don't go, a Surba Alma. So Ema Seifa. So it says in the Seifa, Achar Pesach, if she ends up going after Pesach, Bebal Yachla Devaro. V'id Deloy is Hani Lifnei Pesach. If she didn't derive any Hana before Pesach, Mi Ika Ba Yachel. If she did this Hani, it must be that she did get Hana. Alma Mishani. So she clearly got Hana. Otherwise, she wouldn't have violated Hana. So Tiyuftas, we continue to test Moment Bays, Tiyuf de Rabbi Huda. Well, again, this is a question on the Shita of Rabbi Huda. As Rashi says, the Omer al Yishan Hayom. He says, you better not go to sleep today because a person's not Zahir. Shem Yishal Mach, he may go to sleep tomorrow. Ta'chazina and Hach, we see over here, the Shavkinan law, we hanais lifnei Pesach. We leave her alone to get Hana before Pesach. Debetana nami miser, because she's going to be careful not to violate it, not to go. No ki katani. When we say this, di is hane. So similar as we said before, harizeh babal yachal devaro. Says the Ran, kolemer v'hi gufa kamashmulan shitizahir milei hanais, that she should be careful. Koydem a Pesach, kadei shelo telech la'achar Pesach lo tavli di bal yachel. So pumfakert, you should be careful not to do it because otherwise there's a better chance because you may not be zahir, you may end up violating. Tanan, she'at nehenesli ad hachag, that you should not, you'll derive any benefit from me until Sukkot im telcha beisavich ad Pesach. If you go to your father's house until Pesach. Hochef near Pesach, if she went before Pesach, then asur b'hanaso ad hachag. Then she's not allowed to drive any hana from her all the way until Sukkot. Umuteres leilach achar Pesach, and she's allowed to go after Pesach. Halcha asura lo halcha lo. So again, l'chayra, it's the same question. So Marava hu adin defilu lo halcha asura. Even if she didn't go, halcha asura v'loika lo halcha asura ba'alma. So it's a very similar shakavatara. Meisvei kikar zu olai hayoim, that this bread will be usher to me today. Im elach l'makam ploini l'machar. If I go to this place tomorrow, it's very similar. This form of condition. So achol, if he eats the bread, harizeh babal yelech, then he violates bal yelech. Don't go. The mikatani oichel. Do we actually learn oichel? Achol katani means if you ate. The chi achol harizeh babal yelech. That if you already eaten, then there's a possibility you can violate bal. You should not do bal yelech, and again, it's a condition. You may be more likely to violate it. Halach, if you did go, harizeh b'mal yachel devaro, then you violated. Mahalich lo v'kasha lo Rabbi Huda. So Amulach Rabbi Huda who adin l'lisni mahalich. I did the katani reisha achol to lo litni le achol tani seifa halach. Okay, let's continue. Ha'omer l'isha kainim sheni mishamich harizeh b'bal yachel devaro. You can also violate bal yachel if you make this tonight, this type of a neder, not to have tashmish with your wife. In fact, the Gemara b'ha mishtabed law midaraisa. You can't make such a neder. You have an obligation to have a relation with your wife. You have to be able to provide clothing, food, and relations. So lo yigra b'omer hanas tashmish chalai. It shouldn't be any worse than a person who says, the hana of tashmish will be upon me. He doesn't desire the tashmish. Then we force him. The shabude mishabedle, because he has a chiyuv. However, Hanas tashmishcha alai. If he says that the hana of tashmish shouldn't be upon me, aser she'in machilin lo adam davar asala, because we're not going to feed something to a person, something which is forbidden to him. So we skip down toward the end of this Ran. Indian halacha kaimon Rabbi Huda. We pass like Rabbi Huda mid amrina leel umoid Rabbi Huda ba'omer kainim ena b'shein l'machar umin shakalina and v'tarina and alibe shema mina hilchas kavasa. Interesting. The fact that we say, oh, he's lenient in this case. Why are we saying that? It must be because that's who we hold like. So therefore, Rabbi Yehuda is concerned when it comes to a condition that if you say, a person says, you're focusing on today, if I sleep tomorrow. So we said we have to be careful today, because if you're not careful today, then if you end up sleeping today, then you're probably going to end up violating tomorrow. So because a person is not zahir when it comes to a condition. So then the Ran discusses the idea of tashmish, which is a chiyuv. So he says, according to the Goring Ksuvas, the koinamos kedushas agufninhu umafkia midi shibud. So he says, what exactly is this question? We know that a koinam is a kedushas aguf, and it does remove the shibud. Yeshom medachihe chedi amrinan hasam. Dialmu rabbanan shibud the baal, that the husband's shibud is very strong. Hachanam lumu rabbanan shibud the isha. So too it's strong by the woman. Skipping a couple lines. Yim behind nami nidra du rabbanan hu dahanas tashmish leisba mamasha. This is also a situation which is a din rabbanan, because the hana of tashmish again is a davar she'en bo mamish. Question 4. Madua in konamois mavkiyos midi shibud dabal the iser ha'omer koinim tashmish alecha. So the Ran said, question 4a at least, Amur Rabbanan l'shibuda the isha, that the Rabbanan make the shibud very strong for the woman. Madua ha'omer hanas tashmisha chalai ein haneder chal midaraisa, because this is again a davar she'in bo mamish. The hanas tashmish leisba mamasha. It has no mamish. Okay. Fine. Let's see the next question on T. Let's look at TB first. TB 21. Hanishba o hanaider al davar shein bo mamish ha'im neser v'loikim mishim shivuasa nidro. Okay, let's hold off on that. We're going to see that next Mishnah. Question 20. TA 20. Ha'oiser tashmish beneder matai enochal matai chal min rabbanan matai chal min ha'torah. So if it's a lashon that is ein bo mamish, we hold it's only midrabanan. But if it's a lashon sheish bo mamish, then it will be deraisa, elchal deraisa. But if hana, then nothing. His own hana. Okay, that was TA 20. TA 20. So I'm gonna similar to question 4. All right, let's see this next Mishnah. Shvua sheini yoshin sheini medaber sheini mahalech. So if a person said a shua that I'm not going to sleep, I'm not going to speak, she'ena mahalech, I'm not going to go, aser. So in all these situations, it does work. Now over here, we're talking about a davar she'en bo mamish. But when it comes to shvua, this is, as we say, we're machalik. That when it comes to swearing, making a shvua, it could even be on a davar she'en bo mamish. Whenever you say carbon lo oichelcha, so this lashon neder does not work. We're going to say it's mutter because you're swearing by the life of the carbon. When you swear by the life of the carbon, it doesn't work. Ha carbon shaychalacha, also, which is here's a lashon shvua, but instead of linking it as one word, ha is a separate word, and therefore that causes the language to sound that you're not answering, and therefore it's mutter. Low carbon loychalacha mutter, and if you say low carbon, that this is not a carbon, then it is certainly mutter, this lashon neder, because you're saying it's not a carbon, therefore it's like chulin. Look at the Ran. Mishum dechi omer carbon loychalacha, as we continue to test zayin ben aleph. Iamrin in the b'chai carbon mishtaba shari. The carbon labar ishtabuyehu. As we said, if you swear on the life of a carbon, that does not work. skipping down a few lines. The carbon usher Rameir. The Hechid Tanan Hacha the Shari. Thomas Nisan Rameir Ukmino Labi Gemara. To say that the Mishnah is like Rameir. We're going to see this in the Gemara also. Mashma the Veleko Meimer the Mechalal Lav Mashma. The Hamas Nisan Rameir Halesa Mechalal Lav Ata Shemei Hain. We mentioned before that Rameir doesn't hold that from the negative you can deduce the positive. So now let's see the Gemara, which is how we'll stop. On the top of Tesla Abanav. Mani Mastis Rameir he the Rabbi Huda Vushani carbon Vushani ha carbon. As we mentioned when it comes to Ki Yerushalayim, when it comes to Rameir, he doesn't make a distinction. He holds that either situation it still works. So the fact that it doesn't say Ka, it doesn't have a Chaf, so the L'chara, that means that's only like Rameir. That says it still works. So Hema Seifa, L'karbin Lo'echocha Moter. L'tanan L'karbin Lo'echocha Rameir Oiser. V'yam Rabba Nasik Ka'im L'karbin Hei. L'fikach Lo'echocha. So L'kasha, Hadi Omer L'karbin, Hadi Omer Lo L'karbin. The Lo'i Havi Carbon Kaimer. If you say L'karbin, then that already is considered to be enough that it's usser. However, you say Lo L'karbin, then certainly in that situation, you're saying it's not a carbon, and therefore it's not a problem. So there's a difference between low licarbon or licarbon, and therefore based on those two different ways of saying it will be the difference whether or not that neder is chal, whether what you said means anything. Okay, we're going to stop there, but let's first look at question 5. Mahu chamer shvuos Nedarim. So at least we see one of them here. And we'll see the other one on tomorrow's daf. But at least this, we know that shvua is more chamer than Nedarim because it's chal even on davar shein bo mamish. Question TB21. Hanishbo hanayder al davar shein bo mamish ha'im neser b'leikum mishim shvua shvuasa on nidrei. So he said, when it comes to a neder, it doesn't work, but that's only midoraisa it doesn't work. However, midorabanan, it does work. The neder is an issa midorabanan. However, when it comes to shvua, there's an issa deraisa, and therefore loka adkan.